Sorry, get out of my face, please. 306,000. Bro, what?
He's running away.
He actually said, I'm leaving the country. Like, I'll try to call it out, I guess. Did he crash? There we go.
There we go.
4.6 poggers. Today we're here to talk about Unvoiced but Warlock Edition. A lot of you watched the Titan version of this and enjoyed it and wanted to see other classes, so here we are today talking about Warlock. If you don't know what I'm talking about in regards to Unvoiced, check out my review of the weapon here. It kind of breaks down why this weapon is really good. It is basically the best legendary DPS weapon in the game, and it competes with guns like Lord of Wolves and Legend of Acreus, and for a legendary to do that is basically insane. So it's really good. For today's video, I am rocking an Unvoiced with redirection and bait and switch. I don't have Assault Mag, but what can you do? This is all you really need, though, in column 3 and 4. For our other two weapons today, we're going to be rocking either Lost Signal or Witherhoard in our kinetic slot. If you're in a fire team with somebody who's running Witherhoard already, then you rock Lost Signal. If no one is running Witherhoard, then you put on Witherhoard. And for our heavy slot, we are using Heathen's Vengeance, the best rocket in the game, and arguably the best heavy in the game currently in terms of burst damage. Since we're rocking bait and switch on our Unvoiced, the idea here is to rotate through your weapons and get as much damage out of those two weapons as you can before you rotate back to Unvoiced. With Heathens being the exact same thing, a bait and switch weapon, and also having Envious Arsenal, it makes it a perfect candidate for this weapon rotation. For our Warlock's exotic armor piece, we are of course rocking Sanguine Alchemy, the best Warlock exotic in the game, and it will probably still be the best Warlock exotic in the game for Edge of Fate. In terms of our kit, we're actually using Solar and Prismatic, as you already saw in the intro clip, and I'll explain why in a second. But in regards to aspects, fragments, and all that, you actually need very, very little to pull all of this off. So first, we're going to start on Solar with Wellarians, because we're going to pop our Well as one of the first things that we do. The only things you really need on here are going to be Phoenix Dive and Healing Grenade. You don't really actually need them, but this will matter for getting a solar buff for something in our artifact. As for aspects, you could put whatever you want. If you want, you could put in some Helion action for a little bit of bonus damage during DPS, but it's not mandatory. If you want to put in Ignition fragments in here, maybe Benevolence or anything like that, you can as well. But again, nothing here really is mandatory. And a big part of that is you're going to be switching off of Well as soon as you drop it, so these things really don't matter that much. Now, after swapping to Prismatic Warlock, we're going to need two things here. First, you're going to need Facet of Courage. This specifically is here to buff the damage of your abilities when you have a Darkness debuff on an enemy. Well is a light ability, and it converts all of your damage basically into super damage, so you're doing light damage the entire time, right? And with Facet of Courage, if you apply a Darkness debuff, like Chill Clip, for example, on an enemy, you're going to be doing bonus damage with everything you're firing at the boss. The other thing you need is a Void Super. So in this case, we're going to be using Nova Bomb. The reason for this is our Sanguine Alchemy chest piece. So the way Sanguine works is when you pop your Rift, and by the way, Well does count as the Rift here, it's going to look at what your super currently is. So at first, your super is Solar, and it's going to be matching Solar. But as soon as we pop Well, and we swap to Prismatic, our super becomes Void. That way, Sanguine is going to read Void and pump the damage of our Void weapons, aka Unvoiced. So that is the reason why you want to have Nova Bomb equipped and then Facet of Courage equipped in your fragments. Now, when you swap, you're going to have 0 abilities. So realistically, again, your fragments and your aspects other than Courage don't matter. But in the event that you're in a long damage phase, you might do so much damage and use so much ammo between Lost Signal and your light weapons that you might get your Prismatic meter full. And in that case, you can activate Prismatic to then start throwing your grenade, which will then weaken and also freeze and shatter, and then your melee for some bonus damage off of that if you'd like. Your melee will just turn into a Prismatic grenade, so your grenade really doesn't matter in this case, but for your melee, you can pick whatever you want. You could pick Arcane Needle if you want Unraveling, or you can go to the Incinerator Snap and get a free ignition off, whatever you'd like. Though I will say, 95% of the time, the boss is just going to get cooked and fall over well before you ever get Prismatic. So that is all the gear in a nutshell. I'll have dim links for all of that in the description below for this video if you want to just copy all of that. let's move on to artifact, mods, and the rotation for this build. Here's the artifact on screen if you want to copy it for yourself, but the two main mods you want to worry about in this build are going to be the following. Number 1, Legend Incarnate. This states weapon with the Time Lost Magazine Origin trait gain bonus damage, 15% by the way. These weapons are overcharged and blah blah blah, we don't care about that. So we get 50% extra damage on our Heathen's Vengeance because it has that Time Lost Magazine Origin trait. Then the other mod is going to be Limit Break. Casting your super while critically wounded, or you have an elemental buff matching your super element grants a period of increased super damage. So guess what? Well Radiance counts with this too. So what you want to do right before you pop your well is throw that healing grenade or the Phoenix Dive that I mentioned earlier. It'll give you a light solar buff. Then you pop well, so you then popped Limit Break with a buff on, and bang, you get bonus damage because of that as well. Next, let's talk about the rotation for this DPS build. So there's more ways than one to rotate the weapons in this build for optimization. I'm going to keep it as simple as basic as possible. That way, the majority of people watching this can try to use this and get used to it and hopefully do great damage. So, as you're getting ready to start damage, the first thing you're going to want to do is get that solar light buff on you before you pop your well. Like I mentioned, you can use your healing nade, you can use your Phoenix Dive, whatever you'd like. After that, you pop your well, and then immediately go into your menu and swap to your Prismatic subclass, which has Nova Bomb equipped and Facet of Courage. At this point, somebody applies a Darkness debuff, whether it's an ability or someone using Tanash's Mastery, which you can also do, by the way, instead of a GL if you'd like. That's up to you. But in most cases, you just want to have a GL, whether it's Lost Signal or Witherhoard, in your kinetic slot. So you shoot your kinetic, whatever that may be, then you swap the Heathens, and you should have 2 rockets to shoot because of the Time Lost Origin trait after popping your super. You shoot your 2 rockets, and then you go into Unvoiced. From here, you have Redirection and Bait and Switch active on your Unvoiced, so you just keep shooting your shoddy until you run out of ammo, and even then, you can reload and keep shooting until you see Bait and Switch is gone, and then you can swap back to Heathens and shoot another 2 rocket shots, then go to your kinetic, shoot that, and finally go back to Unvoiced to have Bait and Switch procced one more time. Now, if you want to get technical, you could shoot maybe 4 shots of Unvoiced, then go back to Heathens, shoot 2 rockets, and then go back to Unvoiced again to shoot the other 4 shots. That's up to you. If you don't want to complicate things, just stick to the basic pattern I mentioned right before this. And that's generally the rotation. It may look a little intimidating, but trust me, it's not that hard to learn. With that out of the way, let's move on to armor mods. They are mostly generic and pretty straightforward, but there's a couple things I want to mention just to avoid confusion. So mainly, it's going to be the boots. You may see that I have Solar Weapon Surge on my boots, but we're using a Void Weapon for our main source of damage. The thing is, with Sanguine Alchemy, it provides its own weapon surge, that being a 4x weapon surge, to our Void Weapon because of Nova Bomb as our super. Therefore, in our boots, we don't need Void Weapon Surge. So instead, you put on Solar Weapon Surge to buff the damage of your Heathen's Vengeance when you're shooting those rockets. In my helmet, I have a Stasis Siphon on because before getting to damage, I actually have Tanash's Mastery on to kill adds and also build up stacks for redirection. Like if I have to kill an orange bar enemy, for example, you can't shoot it with the shotgun because you will lose stacks. So instead, I would shoot it with Tanash's. We then have Radiant Light to give my teammates armor charge when I pop well. And then in my gloves, I have Void Loader for Unvoiced, and then Solar Dexterity and Void Dexterity for both Unvoiced and Heathens. And the rest is pretty generic. I have resist mods here. I have a reserved mod for Unvoiced ammo. I have Special Finny for green, Powerful Attraction to pick up orbs, and then Time Dilation to extend my armor charges for DPS. And that is the build. It is extremely powerful and has very, very little actual build crafting going on, and is very easy to learn once you get the patterns down. If you guys try out the build, let me know what you think. I will have those dim links down in the description below, like I mentioned earlier, along with my socials if you want to, follow those too. They're free. Anyway, if you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing today. It does help the channel grow and is much appreciated. If you want to go the extra mile, you can leave a like and or comment below as well. If you don't know what to leave as a comment, you can leave Unvoiced as the comment. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.